A Florida jail cell, a boot company from 1988, and a contract negotiation that could define the next 5 years of Chicago Bears football. That is your NFL offseason right now, ladies and gentlemen. That is the landscape we are navigating as we barrel toward training camp with the energy of a freight train that has lost its brakes on a downhill slope. And if you thought the offseason was supposed to be the boring part, if you thought the months between the draft and week 1 were supposed to be quiet, uneventful, and forgettable, then brother, you have clearly never watched Chicago Bears Voice, because we do not do boring. We do not do quiet. And this week, the NFL absolutely refused to do it either. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. You are listening to Chicago Bears Voice, the only place on the internet where we give you the Bears news, the NFL drama, the tabloid chaos, and the unfiltered truth all in one place with absolutely zero apologies for any of it. If you are new here, let me tell you exactly what this channel is about. We are about passion. We are about accountability. We are about telling it exactly like it is, even when the truth is uncomfortable, hilarious, or in tonight's case, completely unhinged. Now, let us get into it, because this week delivered 3 stories that individually would be enough to carry an entire episode, but the NFL decided to serve them up all at once like some kind of off-season chaos buffet. So, we are going to go deep on all 3. We are going to start with the biggest business story in the Bears universe right now. Pivot to one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking stories the entire NFL has seen this offseason. And then we are going to end with something that is equal parts hilarious and fascinating involving our franchise quarterback and a boot company that probably still uses a fax machine. Buckle in. Here we go. Let us begin with Darnell Wright. Because if you have been a faithful member of this community, you have heard me talk about this man with reverence and respect since the day Ryan Poles walked up to that podium and called his name with the 10th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. And everything that we believed this man could become, he has already achieved and then surpassed. The Chicago Bears are pushing hard to get a contract extension done with their right tackle before training camp kicks off in late July. And this is not just a smart business decision. This is a mandatory one. You do not let Darnell Wright reach free agency. You do not let another franchise walk through the door and offer this man a blank check. You sign him. You sign him now. And you never look back. Here is the scope of what Wright accomplished in 2025, and I need you to really sit with these numbers because they are extraordinary. Wright ascended to the upper echelon of right tackles in the entire league during his 3rd professional season. He helped anchor an offense that ranked 3rd in the entire NFL in rushing yards. He allowed the 3rd lowest sack rate at his position across the entire league in pass protection. And he did all of this, every single snap, every single series, every single game, while playing through a torn ulnar collateral ligament in his elbow. A torn knuckle, missing only 1 game because of it. That is not just toughness. That is something bordering on superhuman. That is a man who has decided that pain is a suggestion and that his teammates and his franchise matter more than his own physical discomfort. And the NFL community recognized it. Wright earned 2nd-team All-Pro honors for his 2025 performance. And here is what really tells you everything you need to know about how the Bears organization values this man. Head coach Ben Johnson, one of the most analytically precise offensive minds in football, said that the entire offensive identity of the team is built with Wright specifically in mind. Johnson described him as a powerful player who can displace defenders off the line of scrimmage and acknowledged that the Bears' offense runs more to the right side than the left, with Wright's skill set as the primary reason. When your head coach is essentially building his offensive philosophy around one player's specific abilities, when the entire run game, the entire protection scheme, The entire identity of your offense is shaped by one guy's presence. That guy deserves to be paid like the cornerstone he is. Full stop. What does that number look like? Based on current market analysis, Wright is projected to command somewhere between $25 and $30 million per season on a new deal. And before you gasp at that number, let me give you the market context that makes it completely sensible. The Green Bay Packers signed right tackle Zach Tom to a 4-year deal worth $88 million before the 2025 training camp with a record-setting signing bonus. And watching Wright and Tom side by side on film, Darnell Wright is the better football player right now. He is 24 years old. He is a physical freak. He is a technician, and he has already proven he can perform at an all-pro level while injured. The Bears drafted him with the first pick of the Ryan Poles era. This is personal for that front office. This is legacy. And I have zero doubt that Ryan Poles is going to get this done before the pads go on in late July. The Bears have exercised Wright's 5th-year option, but the real conversation, the one that determines whether Wright spends his prime years in Chicago or eventually tests the open market, is happening right now. Get it done, Ryan. Get it done clean. This is non-negotiable. We are pausing right here at the 4-minute mark because I need to talk to the family watching right now. Producing deep-dive documentaries and sports breakdowns like this takes an incredible amount of hard work, sleepless nights, and absolute dedication behind the scenes. We pour our hearts into making sure Chicago Bears Voice gives you the best content on the internet. Every single subscription we get is a massive wave of motivation for us to keep pushing harder. If you are feeling the energy of this channel and want to help grow our community, please take a second right now to smash that subscribe button, hit the like button, share this video with another fan, and leave a comment below. It truly means the world to us and keeps this machine running. Now, let us get back to the action. Now, we have to pivot to Detroit. Because what is unfolding in Florida with Detroit Lions quarterback Hendon Hooker is one of the most genuinely sobering, jaw-dropping stories the NFL has produced in years, and I want to approach this with the seriousness it deserves. Because behind all the headlines and the legal terminology and the criminal charges, there is a young man whose entire life has apparently unraveled in the most catastrophic way imaginable. Here is what the evidence and reporting tell us. During an Airbnb stay in Largo, Florida in early February, while Hooker and his group were away from the property, a burglary occurred. Items stolen reportedly included $100,000 in cash and an $80,000 necklace. More than $180,000 in property gone overnight. And according to prosecutors, rather than allowing law enforcement to handle the situation, Hendon Hooker allegedly decided to take matters into his own hands in the most violent way possible. Prosecutors allege that Hooker was the primary conspirator in what they describe as a targeted armed robbery. He is accused of coordinating co-defendants to lure 3 men to an apartment where a brutal assault was carried out. 3 young men in their late teens were held at gunpoint, beaten, and pistol-whipped inside a Tampa apartment on February 4th, just 3 days after the initial burglary was reported. And what makes this story go from terrible to absolutely devastating is the detail that stopped every person covering this story cold. The victims had nothing to do with the original theft. They were the wrong people. 3 completely innocent teenagers were terrorized, beaten at gunpoint, and traumatized because of a catastrophic case of mistaken identity in an operation that was already illegal from the very first moment it was conceived. Investigators say they obtained a group chat involving all the defendants in which Hooker and others were allegedly giving directions during the assault. And perhaps most damning, a co-defendant was allegedly live-streaming the attack to Hooker while he was en route to the apartment. That live stream, that group chat, according to prosecutors, that is the digital trail that connects Hooker directly to this incident, even though he was not physically in the room when the violence occurred. Tampa police officials said plainly that fame does not exempt anyone from criminal accountability or the pursuit of justice. And that sentiment could not be more appropriate here. Hooker voluntarily turned himself in, and he now faces 4 counts of kidnapping and 4 counts of armed robbery. Charges that carry a potential sentence of life in prison. His legal team has come out strongly denying any involvement, arguing that prosecutors are relying on testimony from convicted felons with incentives to shift blame. And that is a legitimate legal defense strategy that deserves to be heard in a court of law. But here's the context that makes that defense an uphill battle. At least 2 co-defendants have already pleaded guilty to robbery and kidnapping charges for their roles in this incident and are now cooperating with prosecutors. When your co-defendants are already cooperating, the walls close in fast. Hooker remains held without bond. A pre-trial detention hearing was scheduled to determine whether he stays behind bars until trial. And given the severity of the charges and the nature of the alleged evidence, that hearing was always going to be a difficult one for his legal team. What does this mean for the Detroit Lions? Training camp is weeks away. If Hooker cannot secure bond, or if bond is denied entirely, he could miss the entire 2026 season while this case works its way through the legal system. The Lions have said they are aware of the situation and are monitoring it carefully, declining further comment out of respect for the ongoing legal process. Detroit did add quarterback depth in the draft. But losing a projected player to something like this puts their depth chart in an enormously uncomfortable place heading into a season where they have legitimate aspirations. This is genuinely tragic on every level. A young man given a gift that most people spend their entire lives dreaming about, watching it collapse around him in the most avoidable way imaginable. Whatever the courts ultimately determine, whatever the facts ultimately prove, this story is a reminder that no amount of fame, money, or athletic ability insulates anyone from the consequences of the choices they make. And those 3 teenagers who were allegedly victimized in that apartment deserve justice. Period. Now. Because this week apparently took a blood oath to keep us on our toes from start to finish, let us talk about Caleb Williams and the great Iceman trademark catastrophe of 2026. And I want to be very clear about something before we get into this. I am going to laugh. I am going to have fun with this. But I am also going to tell you why this story is actually more interesting than it first appears. Because on the surface, it sounds like a punchline. And it kind of is a punchline, but there is a real chess match happening underneath the comedy. And Caleb Williams' business team is about to make some very interesting moves. Here's the setup. Caleb Williams has been building one of the most impressive personal brands in NFL history for a player his age, his snack venture. His high-profile partnerships, and now the Madden 27 cover, making him the first Chicago Bear to ever appear on the cover of the Madden video game franchise. The man is not just a quarterback, he is an empire. So when he filed a trademark application for his nickname, the Iceman, it was the most logical brand protection move in the world. Lock it down before someone else profits off your identity. Classic Caleb. Smart Caleb. Business Caleb. Except the United States Patent and Trademark Office just said no. And the reason they said no will go down in sports business history as one of the most spectacularly absurd trademark rulings ever documented. The Patent Office did not cite George Gervin, the NBA Hall of Famer who carried the Iceman nickname for decades on the hardwood. They did not cite UFC Hall of Famer Chuck Liddell, who terrorized opponents under that same nickname for years inside the octagon. They cited a trademark filed in 1988 by Lacrosse Footwear for insulated boots. Boots? The United States federal government looked at Caleb Williams' line of shirts, hats, pants, and sports merchandise and said, and I need you to really hear this, that it was too similar to a boot company from the Reagan administration. Somewhere in a patent office in Washington, D.C., a government employee typed those words with a completely straight face, and I genuinely do not know how they did it. The official refusal letter stated that the marks are identical in appearance, sound, and meaning, and that they are likely to create the same commercial impression when considered alongside the respective goods of both parties. In other words, Boots and Bears merchandise are apparently indistinguishable. Now look, trademark law is complicated. I am not a lawyer. Chicago Bears Voice is not a law firm. But trademark attorneys have called this reasoning a serious stretch and pointed out that the lacrosse registration covers a very limited and specific product line. And here is where the story gets genuinely fascinating underneath the comedy. Lacrosse footwear may no longer even be actively selling a product called the Iceman. They appear to have rebranded that product line to something called Ice King. And this matters enormously because, under United States trademark law, you must continue actively using a trademark to maintain your rights to it. If lacrosse has abandoned the Iceman name, if they are no longer actively marketing products under that specific trademark, then that registration becomes vulnerable to cancellation. And if that trademark gets canceled, Caleb Williams' application could sail right through. That is the legal chess move that Caleb's very capable business team is already calculating. This is not over. This is barely the opening move of a fight that Caleb Williams is uniquely equipped to win. Williams still has his Iceman logo application, separate from the word trademark, currently under initial review. He can appeal the initial wordmark refusal. Roughly 65% of new trademark applications receive initial refusals in 2026 alone. Initial denials are practically standard procedure in this process. And NBA legend George Gervin himself weighed in, saying he has nothing but respect for Williams and his potential greatness, but also making it very clear that the Iceman name already has an owner. That quote, simultaneously a flex and a compliment, is exactly the kind of moment that belongs in a sports documentary 10 years from now. Caleb Williams is not going to let a boot company be the thing that stops him. The man engineered 7 fourth-quarter comebacks last season. He is going to engineer a trademark victory too, watch so. Let us zoom all the way out and look at this week from 30,000 feet. The Chicago Bears are racing to lock up one of the most dominant young offensive tackles in football before camp begins. A deal that would cement the right side of their offensive line for the next half-decade and signal to the entire league that this organization protects its own. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions are watching a player navigate a major legal crisis in Florida, a story that is as heartbreaking as it is shocking. And the franchise quarterback of the Chicago Bears, the cover of Madden 27. The empire builder is locked in a trademark battle with a boot company that has not been relevant since George H.W. Bush was in office and is probably going to win that battle because that is simply who Caleb Williams is. The 2026 NFL season has not started yet. Training camp has not opened. Preseason games are still weeks away. And we have already had enough drama, enough chaos, and enough storylines to fill an entire season's worth of content. Bears fans, this ride is only getting wilder. And Chicago Bears Voice is going to be here for every single twist, every single turn, and every single bombshell that drops between now and February. We are hitting the final minute of the documentary. And if you are still here listening to my voice, you are the true backbone of this channel. As I mentioned earlier, the hard work and dedication required to research, write, and produce these long-form videos is intense. But knowing we have a community like you makes every single second worth it. Every new subscriber gives us the ultimate motivation to keep raising the bar. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button right now, turn on all notifications, leave a like, and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on everything we covered today. Let us grow this incredible community together. Thank you for listening, and as always, bear down.